Yes, good evening, good afternoon, and greetings to all of you who have joined us. Welcome back, Brother Pigeon. Welcome, Brother Ndlovu, Brother Bongani. Good to see you. I hope you will have your microphone on so you can contribute. Welcome, Sister Shaza, and welcome, Sister Tapua. Thank you all for coming. I'm sure others will join us soon. We have met again on a Saturday like this to continue our conversation around the unification of Africa. We are the Consensusism Study Group, and we promote Consensusism, which is the philosophy and ideology of Pan-Africanism, as spelled out in Nkrumah's book, the book of Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, called Consensusism. We meet on Thursdays where we discuss philosophy and ideology, and then on Saturdays we meet and discuss unification. We are looking for another day where we will discuss economics, which will feature the book Neocolonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism. So welcome. It's a conversation. All of us are free here to share our thinking and also to react to what anybody says. It's a free space, so feel free. Do not feel inhibited in any way. Share your thinking, but just bear in mind that your thinking will be challenged or can be challenged by others if they feel that what you are saying does not align with the history as others see it. So welcome. Brother Pigeon let me know that Brother Ndlovu wants to share with us at length or wants to have a conversation with us on unification. And if that is correct, then Brother Ndlovu, please proceed and start the conversation with us. Brother Victor is also joining us, as I can see, and he did not finish his conversation the last week. So hopefully he will continue his conversation. So, Brother Victor, I was saying that you didn't finish your conversation last week. So hopefully you will continue and share your views, which you couldn't fully share last week. We assume that everyone has a right to speak, and we assume that everyone would like to speak. So we go we go around and ask everyone to share. So the floor is now opened. And Ndlovu, are you happy to start? Brother Pigeon, is that correct?
Yes.
Brother, yes, okay. So Brother Ndlovu, can you share your thoughts with us on this conversation on African unification? Thank you.
Yes. Greeting kings. Greetings if there are any queens in the house.
Yes, there are. There is Tachizomo.
All right.
There is Sister Shaza. There is.
Oh yes.
There is Tapua. We have lots of queens.
Yes.
Without the queens, we the kings are not complete. Thank you.
Yes. No, greetings. It's always an honor and a privilege to join sons and daughters of this continent. We feel. Just sorry. Let me address the bit of background noise. My daughters are hosting friends, so they do what they do while we're having a session. But nevertheless, so it's always an honor and a privilege together with sons and daughters of this continent. All of us, we actually want exactly what our ancestors have dreamed of. And we would love to see a united Africa in our lifetime. I think, our ancestors would have loved the same. to see African solidarity achieved in their lifetime. And I believe when they formed the Organization of African Unity in 1963, that was the idea. The idea was a manifestation of this desire to unite the continents immediately, you know. It's a pity then that because of the, you know, divisions of views, we're still sitting with the same problem that was there. You know, so Nkrumah was not even the first one to highlight this. You know, before him, there were many others. You know, Marcus Garvey's and them in their generation attempting the same thing. So perhaps where we find ourselves as a generation, we then have to look and say, look, whatever has happened until today has not delivered this unity. You know, we see African Union, it's not delivering what we want. And to the youngest of our democracy in South Africa, we thought ANC was such an organization that will at least ignite this fire of unity, because when they say African, you know, National Congress, and when they say Nkosi Sikeleli Afrika, Nkosi Sikeleli Afrika, they were not declaring this thing just thinking of Azania. They were thinking of the whole continent, you know. Now, of course, all of us rallied. We were very much excited, 1994, going to election, making this history. But long and behold, we as South Africa did not learn our lessons, because if we had learned our lessons, we would have asked, how have all these other territories that were, you know, achieved their independence earlier? We were going to ask, you know, that's what we say in Zulu. We say you should often ask those who are ahead of the game. You know, if ANC had asked, you know, the journey of Ghana liberation movement, if ANC had asked ZANU-PF this journey of the liberation movement, then they shouldn't have fallen in the same trap. The same trap of, you know, being infiltrated in this generation and diverting the agenda into something else. You know, the reality today as South Africa, we all stand shocked and amazed. How did it happen? How did it happen that an organization that was meant to be a spear for us, for our liberation, suddenly is the one offering our, you know, nation and all of our dreams on a platter back to the colonizers. So nobody had dreamed of this, but here is the reality. If we all stand and just do self-introspection, we will then realize that, look, perhaps it's not our parents that really, you know, could deliver the unity of Africa. Perhaps it's not our grandparents, because really the generation of today's politicians, they are really our parents. They are our fathers, they are our grandparents. So perhaps their role was to just usher us in the era of independence, and, you know, maybe open the door for us now as a generation to say to ourselves, look, if our parents and our grandparents achieved independence of Africa, we recognize this, and, you know, they've done their part. So what will be our part today? So what will this generation of ours be remembered for in this journey? We've reflected, we often reflect on the names of our grandparents. We often call the names of our fathers, you know, So when we reflect today, what is it that generations to come will remember this generation for? Now that we are in a different era, I mean, the biggest perhaps consolidation that was ever attempted would have been maybe the likes of the Marcus Garvey to even create, a shipping line and imagine this united Africa to an extent that they had full uniform and gear and structures and organization. And they really saw this dream of an Africa nationalism. So, they went that far to make noise about it. And, they did all of that in a very hostile environment, an environment that was very much oppressive, an environment that despised them more harsher than this generation we've experienced, So they had no technology and no ability. They were really crushed in many ways, by force, compared to our generation, where we are not crushed as much as our grandparents and our parents have been crushed, with such violence, with such aggression. So we find ourselves as a generation living in different circumstances where there's such globalization today. Today we can, thanks to technology, we can engage overnight. Within 24 hours, we can hit the entire globe, all 195 jurisdictions that are recognized today by United Nations. We can reach them at the spur of the moment, at the speed of lightning. We don't have restriction in terms of ability to communicate and interact. Even if we wanted to travel, in fact, travel is even more advanced today. Flights across the Atlantic, Indian Ocean, Mediterranean. There's all kinds of options for us to gather. In fact, venues, cities, stadiums, halls have been built for this generation. And so we have so much in our favor, even the ability to virtually connect. We are doing in such a platform now. We've got Zoom, Google Meet, all of these things. They agree. And access to knowledge today, it's amazing because we have technology now with our smartphones that we no longer gone are the days where you needed to go to a library to access information. And when you go to a library, you have to, go through bookshelves looking for that knowledge. Today, you have artificial intelligence in a matter of seconds. You just have to, at the voice command, tell this, chat GBT that, look, do this and this for me. In seconds, this thing will bring whatever files, information, data within your fingertips. So that means this generation find itself in a very much opportune time. There's never been such a time as this in history, where we find ourselves with such technology, with such ability, with such possibilities. And again, we have to also appreciate where we are. Let's say all of us, the entire globe has been liberated. There's no more, colonialism fell and apartheid fell. It's been even decreed crime against humanity. So now we see it with this utmost freedom. There's even to a certain extent freedom of speech. Yeah, there may be a pockets of nations that still frown upon freedom of speech. They suppress press, suppress youth, maybe, but by and large in South Africa, in South Africa, anyone can say what they want against even the president with no consequences. You can say what you want. Tell President Cyril how you feel, and say it in media. You're not going to go to jail for that. So we have this liberty. However, the results that we need to achieve with that technology and with that liberty. I feel that perhaps if we miss this window, we may never have, I think our children, the generation of our children is at higher risk because our children are learning now in multiracial schools. All they learn and all they desire, all they live to see with these smartphones is opportunity that lies across the Atlantics and Mediterranean. You know, they dream about being part of Silicon Valley. They dream about Western brands. They dream about jobs, you know, in multi-international corporations. They dream about, because this is what they've been exposed to. So that means they are losing conscience of being who they are as Africans. They no longer identify. In fact, they don't know the stories of our parents and our grandparents. You know, they're not loyal to that. Now they want to, you know, they're globetrotters. You know, they really want to be in Paris. They want to be in London. They want to be in New York. They want to be elsewhere to make big brands and household names. Now, it means the generation that is a breach, it's really our generation. So if we fail, we're going to fail the future generations, and we're going to fail our parents and our ancestors, so our grandparents. Therefore, it stands to reason that, you know, we are the best generation to bring and become the bridge between the past and the future. So my really, you know, appeal or a desire at this hour is that we then have to make it happen. We have to make the change. The narrative up to now has been that the strategy that saw Africa weakened is divide and conquer. Divide and conquer has been used as a tactic to diffuse the real strength of Africa. Now, if the enemy use that strategy, you know, let's divide them. Let's give them nationality, you know, different, you know, borders, you know. Let's create political parties for them so that they contest. Let's create this democracy for them. Let's create these laws and these rules. And let's change names and things, and even change their name, change their education, change their religion. Let's now divide them. You see, today, Africa, some of us are fighting, you know, border battles. Who put those borders there? Who told you you were South African? Who actually told you that you were, you know, a Zimbabwean? Who told you that? Because we were Africans always first. Now today we kill each other on religious ideologies. So who told you you were a Muslim? Who told you you were a Christian? Who told you you were a Jew? Or who told you? So now we will even kill each other against you know, foreign religions on the continent. So I think then, for me, I think the conversation should be for this generation today. All right, we've looked at the past. We are looking at the future. So what would it take for us today to achieve the critical mass that is required for us to have solidarity in our hour? How, you know, the question we should be asking is, what will it take for us to have solidarity in 2025? You know, forget 2030, 2025. What will it take for us within 12 months for us to achieve the critical mass that we need to achieve this solidarity? Now, if you look at the global stats, you see that we have 195 nations. Now, sons and daughters of this continent are scattered across that globe. And the estimate going forward is that we are the majority as a people, because, you know, since the beginning of time, It is our ancestors that occupied all the continents first, you know, people who descended from this continent, and they still have, you know, they're still melanated. You find them all over the world and all over the continents. So that means we were first the majority. And therefore, all other racial people came from Africa. So they are literally our offspring, our children. They occur much later in life, you know? And now, when you find that if you look at the global arena, things and stats favor Africa right now, because, you know, they talk of median age, that Africa is 19 years and younger. So that means the birth rate and the population growth of Africa is actually the only continent that is literally consistently, the line is shooting straight up. It's not declining. It is shooting up to an extent that 2100, they tell us that Africa will dominate the entire globe, all continents. Because as it is, we are going at the level where 2 in 4 of the global labor force is an African. So that's where it is. And it's going to increase that number now, because you see, if you look at London, you know, the problem with Europe is that they have aging population. Now they are losing labor force. And where are they going to look for labor force? They are looking in importing, you know, people, workers. So immigrant labors, they are coming in, flooding Europe. I mean, they're opening doors in Germany, they're opening doors in Italy, they're opening doors in England. That's why we saw the rise of the protests against foreign national workings in Britain. But the real crisis for Europe is that their own citizens, they are aging, and therefore they can no longer sustain the industries that they have built. And therefore they can no longer sustain the dominance of those industries. Now they have to rely on African labor, on Indian labor, on Chinese labor. Now, of course, you know, then the demographics are shifting globally in an immense way, because if you look at other nations like Germany, when they look at the birth rate and Italy, they're looking at numbers below 2. They talk of any range between 1.25 to 1.6, whereas the good, healthy population should be sitting right at 2.5. You know, for every 2 couple, at least for that there is a good projection and good growth, because growth and numbers, it talks about economic growth, because as long as the population is growing, then there will forever be a demand for new housing and new clothing and feeding. That means the economies is only growing where there is healthy population growth. But where population is declining, you are running a risk of skills going, and you are running the risk of buying power diminishing. You now obviously are threatened because you may go extinct if you are not, you know, preserving your own kind. Now, Africa is in favor then. We've got the numbers right now, and we are going to, you know, be the majority even by 2100. So the only thing that we can do in this generation is that Africa then finds in an opportunity. This has never been a nice time like now, like today, to consolidate and position ourselves. Because if we don't do it, we will then lose this window of influence on the global arena and global agenda. Because even now, if you look at this multipolar world that is happening, you know, while the superpowers are threatening each other with nuclear, you know, attack, China versus US, Russia versus US, West versus East, while they are threatening each other and dismantling each other and threatening each other in this way, Africa then remains at a strategic location to be the referee, to be, you know, the deal breaker between the East and the West. But Africa needs to rise, because right now, Africa does not have the voice. And in all current demographic, or rather institutions of democracy today. Because if you look at that 195 nations, so majority of them sits in the continent of Africa, the 54 nations. That means if you look at all the continents, Africa has the largest number of nations and votes, therefore, in the United Nations. If you add the diaspora nations, like the Caribbeans, you know, the Haitis, the Caribbean islands there, all those nations that sits there, then that means it's clear that United Nations, we are in the majority, Africa and those who descend from Africa. That means in United Nations, we should be having the biggest influence in the political arena and direction of the world, and in its business and economy and policy of business and trade. Africa should be at the pole position because we do have majority globally. If we look at that now, because we are divided by those national flags. We've been reduced to small states that are individually ineffective on the global arena. Now, the only way we can change it, it is us as a generation that we need to change it now, and we need to change it overnight. And the way I look at it, which it's what brings us here, is that the only way we can achieve Ubuntu solidarity, that means just, you know, how do we reach the critical mass of these 2 billion of us scattered all over the world? It's something that this generation needs to be very much intentional about it. We have to be very much intentional about it. We have to forget the various factions, various brands, various national flags, various national organizations, and really be sober. You know, it's what Nkrumah was saying. You know, you're going to have to forget you are South Africa, forget you are Zimbabwe, you know, forget your sovereignty as a small state, you know, forget you are Bermuda, forget you are Haiti, you know, forget, you know, you're a small, you know, forget just you are Cuba as a state or on your own. But recognize that Africa, if we can achieve this solidarity, then we can actually participate on the global arena as equals with the East and the West. You know, we don't have to be told that the Security Council of United Nations for 80 years, it's dominated by 5, players, you know, and top 3 of those is America, Britain, and France. You know, they're the only ones who dictate terms of war and peace. And the rest of us are not even there. Even if they want us featuring now with the 2 seats for Africa, can you imagine the insult? Can you imagine the insult? If we're talking about democracy, we are talking about majority, right? So majority. Now, when you consider what I've just said, 54 of the nations in the United Nations come from the continent, and the rest of them are in diaspora, and the others in the Caribbean. Consolidating that number, it means Africa has a majority in the United Nations. Now, given that we even have healthy relationship with BRICS, India and China, it means, you know, just that, Global South has dominance. I mean, Brazil itself is 90% African and African descendants. So, which means we really should have a much stronger voice on all institutions of, the democratic institution, if truly democracy is living, including the World Bank, including the IMF, because it's about representation and it's about voting power, you know. But now we have made that power null and void because of our disunity. So what we have now, effectively done is have so many presidents and leaders and prime ministers, but collectively they cannot operate as a unit, on the global arena and put a strong position for Africa. Now, that means we need to help them in this hour, because None of these political parties will do it. None of the current heads of state will do it. Cyril is the last of the heads of state. He's the youngest, in terms of ANC, in terms of, how old is our liberation or independence. But even the youngest of us, cannot deliver the change that Africa needs in that solidarity. So for us, we're thinking it falls on us. We cannot, therefore, fall on the same traps as our ancestors did. Use the same tactics of divide and conquer to us. That must not work for us. So my proposal is that for a second, 2024, 2025, can we forget all of the things that have divided us thus far? Can we, for a second, call all of our efforts and pull them together? Because I have been on many conferences and forums and meetings and Pan-Africanist groups. What I see as a trend in all of them is that, I was in a global conference that was happening in Zanzibar. You alluded to it earlier, and it's supposed to be a global African Congress. Or rather, yes, a Global African Congress. So now if you say Global African Congress, that means we should talk about all the 195 jurisdictions represented. But instead, you have officials who are just about 30, in the room. And they have an agenda to campaign for the 2 billion. And then you come to various Pan-Africanist groups. I've been part also of ACUP. We're doing this thing in the corner there, and then you see about 15 people. You have been part of these teams here as well. Like you see about 15 people, and then you go to the other, you see about 20 people. So now it means that we are now victims of exactly the same ineffective African Union. We are blaming it that, everybody's a puppet, is bought, but we're not bought. Nobody's buying us. So what is it that makes us behave in the same way as our parents and our ancestors in terms of being divided today without us being bribed or paid anything? Because everybody wants to build their own brand, everybody wants to have their own color t-shirt, and the reality is this: in South Africa today we have outright majority. We can change the constitution today because just within 3 organizations, ANC, EFF, and MK, just those 3, they possess outright majority today, not tomorrow. However, because they have chosen to wear their t-shirts more and uphold their t-shirts more than the unity of Africa, then they have rather decided to sell that unity into and dilute it, with Abelu, the DA, and so to an extent that today DA has more influence on our parliament. And yet, white people together in South Africa, of the 62 million people, they're only 7%. So how did it happen that 7% of the population has such prominence in our parliament? It's driving, the narrative. How did it happen that our giants, EFF, Umkhonto, ANC, are paralyzed? They too much fighting over their colors and their t-shirts, as opposed to recognizing that the enemy is not us. We are not divided by our t-shirt colors and flags and caps. Actually, the real battle here is for solidarity of our people across the Atlantic, Indian Ocean, and Mediterranean. Now, we need to be then the voice of that conscience right now, to remind all of these political parties, all of these so-called liberating movements that sits currently in our parliaments. We need to remind them who they are. Perhaps they have forgotten. The only way we can do that is if we do something that has never been done. It's never been done by any other generation. That this is going to be the first generation that forgets our t-shirt colors. We first recognize we are African. And on that premise, we then intentionally tell ourselves we want to achieve the critical mass for Ubuntu solidarity in this hour, 2024, 2025. That's it. So over the next 12 months, let's make it happen. So for it to happen, it will take us doing just one thing. All of us by December, let's have at least, 20 of our Pan-Africanist leaders who are on fire right now, representing each of these 195 territories, just 20 of them that needs to be identified. And by December, we put them on this call, because if you do that, there's going to be like under 4,000 people in this call. That means just 20 from each nation. And we come together from the various groups and various organizations. We talk with one voice. We say, guys, I have to plan for 2025 agenda. If we do nothing, 2025 Chinese will always have an advantage in their economy, and the West will continue to take advantage. And the AI industry, it's going to remain in the hands of the West and the China. Africa would have no share in it because we don't even have the infrastructure. But if we shift the game and achieve solidarity, we can reshape the narrative. 2025 can be way different than everybody else has imagined. China is nothing economically and number and resources compared to Africa. Everybody is talking about China, being the next big player only because they have not seen Africa uniting. In fact, they don't even dream about it. They don't even see the possibilities of it happening because they can see how divided we are. So now, my submission today is that we need to change this narrative, and it's urgent that we do it. And in fact, the timelines we should be saying is, how do we achieve this solidarity in 2025, not in 2030? What will it take for us to pull all of our organizations together into that conference in December 2020, 2024 for a planning so that we collectively attack the agenda of 2025 as a unit? Now, imagine for a second that we can, let's say, for instance, we achieve this conference. We have 20 delegates in each of these 195 jurisdictions. And our first mandate and assignment for 2025, we say, guys, now let's put pressure onto our government that we want them to, we want this single passport. We've been talking about it. United Nations has been talking about it, and they are talking about it. They are not implementing. If we go there and tell them we want it implemented fully across board by 2025, by close of 2025, and all of us go with that petitions, organize those petitions and serve them in all presidents across the 195 jurisdictions. Now, the level and the scale of impact of that kind of, action, it will be felt globally, and every parliament will debate it and discuss it, and it will tell our leaders that it's time now. The masses are telling them the direction they should take. Because in reality, in democracy, we are the ones who employ our presidents on our behalf. So we are actually the shareholders. They are our servants. They lead us and represent our interests, not the markets, But contrary now, everybody thinks, as soon as you've appointed them in office, they report to the market. But that's not the truth. The truth is they must respond to the shareholders, who are not the market, who are you and me on the ground, because it's us who give them sovereignty. It's us who give them sovereignty. So if we are united on the ground as masses, then we can tip the scale. And I think I'm going to yield there for now for other thoughts. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Brother Ndlovu. In fact, thank you so much for your presentation. It's a very, very conscientious presentation. You've looked at the the history. You've addressed issues to do with governance, politics, economics, and so on. And then you've laid on the table your proposal that we organize a Pan-African conference of 125 jurisdictions. I must confess that I do not know all these jurisdictions, but I'm sure you do. So if it's okay with you, you are not the vision holder when it comes to this. So if it's okay with you, you will lead us on this journey. CSG is a philosophical and ideological grouping. We do not have any particular T-shirt. Our T-shirt is that we will work with anyone on the ideological and philosophical position, and we are encouraging all groups to be part or to adopt consensusism as their philosophy, philosophical consensusism as their philosophy, and consensusism as the ideology. But we are aware that others prefer liberalism and some prefer conservatism, whilst others prefer, if you like, capitalist market-led ideological thing. So we are aware of that, but we continue to push for the recognition that if Africa does not return to the basic philosophical and ideological principles that informed the Pan-African conferences from 1901 all the way to when Nkrumah called it in Accra, to the ones that have happened since. If we don't return to those principles, that not much will happen. So on behalf of everyone here, I'd like to thank you for your presentation and your proposal. I would like to go to Brother Glenroy, because you mentioned the Global African Congress and you said a few things. Brother Glenroy, I don't know if you can hear me, but what Brother Ndlovu is proposing, after the World Conference on Racism in South Africa, I believe in 1990, was it? And the GAC was formed. 2001. 2000, yeah. After that World Conference on
2001, then the GAC 2002. It was meant to be 2000, but the demand to put reparation on the agenda meant that it was pushed back a year. So it was 2000 intended, but it took place in 2001.
Now, the reason I mentioned GAC is because as I understood it, so GAC came into being as a global African Congress, the kind of thing that Ndlovu is mentioning. But it has faced challenges, as you're aware. And perhaps someone like you will be helpful to us in guiding us, if you like, so that we do not stumble on the kind of things that has caused the Global African Congress not to be able to play the kind of role that was initially envisaged. Are you able to talk about that in terms of what Brother Ndlovu has said?
Yeah, well, I have no intention to respond directly to what the comrade has said. He's made his position clear. He's perhaps not aware of the history of GAC and the struggle we go through. I'd rather respond to his analysis that he gave around the issue of unification, because, you know, we've all campaigned, I think, for unification of the continent. But we know there are many, many obstacles. And it is said, as an old African saying, that, you know, when people stumble on the path, it's not their fault, it's the fault of those who have traveled that path before and hadn't to remove those obstacles. So I understand the sense of wastage, I think, is probably the best response I can give, that we've not achieved these things in all the years that we've been doing it. And I certainly don't say that people shouldn't blame the exploiters, the colonialists. And I was just talking to somebody, I can't remember, recently, that in fact, when we look at the idea that colonialism started in Africa, triggered by the Berlin Conference, but we ought to recognize that it started long before that. Indeed, it started before enslavement, when certain European nations believed that they owned a certain part of the continent and were in fact managing it. Berlin Conference simply solidified what they had been doing. And this is how they were able to steal our people. But the whole of our movement, the whole of our people's aspiration is wrought by struggle, wrought by people refusing to do what is necessary. It's not going to work if we simply say to all the nations on the continent and all the nations in the so-called diaspora that what you need to do is give up your presidency and to give up your position of authority, etc., and unite to have one powerful Africa. It will not work in that regard. I think it needs something. I'm not saying I have the answer, but I think it will need something else. We discussed at the recent family gathering the issue of borderless travel. You know, why is it, even without removing anybody from their position of president or whatever, that borderless Africa is so elusive? And I think one of the reasons is that it's a money-making scheme for these nations. And you have to offer or replace it with something else for them to give that up. So we really need to be a little creative rather than just say Africa unite. It's time now to say, how will Africa unite? And let's put some demand. I'm not sure about the suggestion that the comrade made about a petition in each nation. I'm not a very fun believer in petition. I think there's better things, direct action, demonstration. Let these governments know that we are not prepared to continue in the way that they've been operating. So that would be my only response to that. Comrade and I can talk about his perception about GAC another time. I don't think it's for this forum. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Bra Pigeon, yes, come in, please.
Thank you. And I thank Brother Ndlovu for his position. I see Brother Sir Kevin is here, Anye. I know he's trying to recover, but they have a plan for United States of Africa declaration and proclamation, which to them appear like a part of plan towards attaining this unity. I don't know if he's in a position to contribute to that conversation, Chair, if you allow.
Yeah, of course, this is a conversation. We allow anyone who has anything to say, because we all want the same thing. Once we're agreed on the principle, and Nkrumah made this very clear, and when we get to chapter 3 of consensusism, Nkrumah makes it very clear. There's a difference between principle and policy. Principle is the that which we all agree on, the general agreement amongst a body of people, a group of people. Policy is how you achieve it. As for policy, there will always be disagreements. There will always be disagreements as to how do we do this. But as long as there's agreement on the principle, we can always have, if you like, a democratic decision on the policy. So yes. So let's all be clear that there will be arguments as to how we should do it. Let me make the point that Brother Pigeon, who
Our chair.
yes, Bongani, Bongani, your speaker is now on. Well done. Yes, you wanted to say something.
You can just sum it up, then I'm just
yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. I wanted to make the comment that following what Brother Ndlovu said, that we CSG have contacted. In fact, we have reached out to Pan-African organizations on the continent through some kind of registration form, and we've collected about how many, Brother Pigeon? How many responded?
The last time I checked, there were 36.
Right, so 36. But it's not clear to me that all the 36 will be from the 125 jurisdictions that Brother Ndlovu has mentioned. So clearly there's still more work to be done there. But the point is that we have started. The other point also I'd like to make is that, Brother Ndlovu, your position complements Brother Sipiwe's position. So Brother Sipiwe is asking that we approach the how through mass mobilization, democratic mass mobilization on the ground. And you are also asking that we do the same at the global level by the mass mobilization of Pan-African organizations. So I think that between your position and Brother Sipiwe's position, we have something there that we can work on. Now, in terms of the December, I'm sure we're all aware that the Togo meeting is not coming on, is now being suspended. And Brother Sipiwe explained that last week. So we have we have global action, and then we have the mass mobilization. The other thing I want to mention is that one of the things that we have been asking for, which we hope should happen, is a constitutional conference. And by that, CSG means that all the nationalities of Africa must sit around one table, not in totality, but in terms of representatives. They should all sit around one table, and then they make decisions on how they want United Africa, what they would like to see. And then because they are the nationalities, they will then order their children who are presidents to do what they have decided. Because there's no, I come from Ghana, and I can say that there is no son of a stool or a skin, or a nationality that will define the orders of the traditional authority, And all Africans are part of a traditional authority. And although the neo-colonial state is dominating the traditional authority, when traditional authorities make proclamations, their children cannot go against it. So we think that there has to be a constitutional conference. So I am proposing that we accept Brother Ndlovu's proposition that we work towards December. There's no harm in doing that. If that doesn't happen, we can always move it forward. And so we aim for the December as proposed. I'm also proposing that we merge the global, as Brother Ndlovu is proposing, and the mass mobilization, as Brother Sipiwe has also proposed. I'll pause there for now and hear thoughts. Yes, Brother Pigeon.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. Yes, I appreciate once again the comments and the contribution, Brother Ndlovu. I was eager to listen to the position by Brother Say Kevin, but we wish him quick recovery, and we actually condemn the government of Nigeria for whatever they did to him in regards to the post-protest that happened in Nigeria. He's been our strong comrades amongst us, and their plan.
Who are you referring to now, Brother? Who?
Anye, Kevin Anye is here.
Brother Che, yeah, okay.
Yeah. is 55 states is organizing a conference in Zambia around early 20th December that brings together all organizations, civic society, and every part of the so-called Pan-African organizations so that they make a declaration and a proclamation to start and initiate a United States of Africa, with its proposal to have a United States of Africa interim governance or leadership structure initiated from that moment, so that then we can advance the unification of Africa as a state, as a counter organization or as a counter state existing parallel to the so-called current neocolonial states, as a move towards moving and shifting to that direction. As we can see, the proposal to have BRICS is coming in at a process when there's still the Western polarized organization, the NATO and the UN, and there's now a counter system that the states are coming up with, so-called BRICS. And therefore, to them and to the Pan-African is that there's a need to set up an organization or an interim body or government in the continental level that is then approved and then endorsed by so many Pan-African organizations as possible, then set up its interim leadership as a startup. That's what they're working on, and the plans are there that I think he will be able to share with us even next week if he's capable. But my contribution to what Brother Ndlovu was saying is that yes, Nkrumah recognized the ability or the need for personal consciousness or personal liberation. When we discuss the PA and the PA at the personal level and the community level, that then the proposition that Brother Ndlovu is putting, that if we get one person, each committing to get a radical and inspire a radical 20 people who are ready to commit to this Pan-African cause, then we are capable to multiply our numbers that by December, we can be able to have a number we need. Then the 20 move ahead to inspire. This shows it from the level that it starts from consciousness and self-consciousness that then spreads to the consciousness that build a community and a team, which I believe and support that analogy of his mathematical calculation. But then we must also be conscious that the liberation of ourselves is very fundamental to the unity of ourselves. Because as we can see across the continent, that there are so-called states that are coming up to be appearing like they're liberated, the so-called the Sahel states. And then they can be flexible enough to discuss how they can have a union or a unity of their so-called states. But because they have attained in some level either a liberation from the so-called the neocolonial system and mastery, they are walking away from that. And therefore, we must also be conscious that then we need to liberate our people, because the revolution, as Nkrumah say, the revolution must be protected and must be safeguarded by the masses. So the aspect of making the revolution be individualistic citizens agenda, what I call civil, it become a civil agenda of citizens to take it up, is the only safeguard towards protecting the liberation. Because you see, our so-called liberated or conscious progressive leaders have arisen to power in some states, but they have been brought down without the masses protesting or bringing the solidarity that is equivalent enough to protect the leadership and the vision of the progressives. So if we don't attain the consciousness and the civilness of our citizens to be conscious of the liberation of the continent and the need for the unification, we put in or we endanger the so-called symbol or few individuals, then they propagate this without the backing and the safeguard of the masses. And therefore, I propose, yes, that the biggest struggle in that line then lies on our unification as a people. And our unification has so many Pan-African movements, over thousands and thousands of them in political, social, and whatever, must start with us liberating our consciousness so that, as you said, we can agree on the principle. Once we can, all Pan-African organizations come to agree on the principles, then that then can make us be liberated from the so-called egos, the flags, and the names and the tags of who we are. And our unity as progressive Pan-African movements and organizations can be the first step towards bringing the united people who belongs to our various organizations to one basket, that then can be the fundamental push towards our unification as a continent. So that's my little contribution I'd like also to share.
Yeah, thank you. Can I ask? So just so I get clarity for the rest of us, what Brother Ndlovu is proposing, we do, and what Brother Che Anye is doing, I believe that's going ahead. Is that correct? In Zambia, how are they linked? As far as you understand it,
as far as I understand, they are not connected. They are not interconnected, because you see that's the problem, that we carry out individual or at level our own activity without being aware of what's going on, because we don't have that network of understanding what's going on where and how. So brother Ndlovu have been in his groups that he has organized around. He has reached so far around 40 states or 40 countries, bringing up people to come together. Without that awareness or linking with Brother Anye, group that is pushing for the Pan-African groupings to meet in Zambia. And also you see Brother Sifiwe organization is also running at an independent state, having also the links and the database organization. So they are not connected, but they are connected in terms of the goal, but no interconnection or links that then brings them together. That's missing.
Okay, I mean, we could say that Brother Anye also is, to use the word, guilty of the same. If Brother Ndlovu is not aware of Brother Anye, what Brother Anye is doing, you could also say that Brother Anye is also not aware of what Brother Ndlovu is doing. So they are both therefore not connecting. But that's the point of Brother Ndlovu, that we need to connect. So there's that awareness. So the Anye initiative, when is this again? I know you said it before. Can you remind us? This is in Zambia. When? You need to unmute yourself, Brother Pigeon.
I'm not sure why Anye is not able to speak, but Anye is now speaking.
Anye, yes, Anye, tell us.
Yeah, greetings,
and we know it's
comrades.
in Zambia. Yeah, greetings. By the way, Anye, we missed you. Where have you been? And it's good. It's good to have you back. Yes,
I am just recovering from the shock that I had here in Nigeria. But
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. The conference is going to take place in Zambia on the 26th of December.
Okay.
26th to the 28th of December, yes.
And what is the conference aimed at achieving?
Uniting the people of Africa and declaring a state of Africa.
Okay. So,
and we're envisaging having about 2,000 people across Africa to attend. 2,000.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So my understanding. Okay. Thank you. Do you want to add anything else before I make a?
No, I think that will be all for now. Thank you.
Excellent. So my understanding. Please share that in the chat if you can, so that members here or participants here are aware of where and when. Yeah. So share that in the chat. So my understanding so far is that what you are doing is at the African level. Is that correct? 2,000 from the African continent. What Brother Ndlovu is suggesting is that it includes the diaspora, and he mentions 125 jurisdictions. That includes the diaspora. And then what Brother Sipiwe has also been saying is mass mobilization on the ground, because sovereignty belongs to the people. So the picture I am getting from our Saturday discussions so far, hearing the news of what is promoting, what is not promoting African unification, is that we have Pan-African organizations that are not talking to one another. Nobody has bought them, but somehow, like the leaders on the ground that we criticize, we are ourselves not united. We're all doing different things. We don't know what the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And yet there are some great ideas that we all share, which is that we act on the global level, we act also on the national level, and then we act also on the continental level. So on the national level, what the CPOA has been saying, we mobilize the masses at the territorial level so that they decide they want to join the African Union. And then on the continental level, what Brother Che Anye has been mentioning, that we declare a united Africa state. And then at the global level, what Brother Ndlovu is saying. So the picture is becoming clearer, at least for me anyway, as to what we need to be doing. And as I said, CSG has already started putting together the names of the Pan-African organizations. And the idea was for us to meet and decide what do we do as a group. So since Brother Ndlovu, as Brother Pigeon has said, has also brought together, I don't know, 80 organizations, we do not believe in having our separate T-shirt. We are unificationists. So we want to work with all of you. We want to work with everyone that wants unification. The only thing we will not compromise on is the principle or the ideological principle that it has to be consensusism, because that is the only official declared philosophy. That's not me saying it. That is a university in Nigeria making that declaration. They made it in the last century, that consensusism is an African ideology, and they have made a declaration on it. So it's even not what Nkrumah said. It is what our philosophers, having gathered in the University of Nigeria, have declared. And so that is the only thing we will not compromise on. But we think we should all be working together. The time now is 8:13, and I think we should open the floor to hear more views. Che, your hand is up. Did you want to say anything else? And then Brother Bongani, I will speak.
Yes.
Yes,
The last time you noted me.
Brother Bongani, just hold on. Let Che finish,
okay,
and then you can come in. Yes, Che.
Yes, I just wanted to add that at the moment, since we want all organizations to be part of the organization of this particular conference, we are inviting everyone who is running an organization or every Pan-African organization and people to be part of the organization. So if anyone is interested to be part of the organization of the conference, since we are still at organization level, you indicate so that we'll add you to the organization committee to handle different aspects of the conference so that we are able to cover all the aspects by the conference.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
That's just all I wanted to add.
Yeah, Che, don't forget to put something in the chat for us. There are some messages in the chat. I don't know if we've all seen it. Brother Pigeon, you might want to later on say something about the chats.
Okay.
Brother Mangani. Yeah, Brother Mangani.
Yes, thanks, man. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, man.
Yeah, come in.
Nice to be here.
Nice to have you.
Long time. I haven't been here for a while. Well, I concur with most of the speakers who already made contributions here. When I'm not visible or when I'm not audible, Chair, just indicate to me. But I concur with most of the speakers. But critically for me, there is a speaker who referred to the process followed, not necessarily to learn from it, but just indicated that the process followed towards colonization. I mean, we always relate to it as of the Berlin Conference of 1884, 85 or so. But there was a process in place. Because, I mean, when they split the African continent, they work on a particular criteria on the basis of occupations that were already made. Not necessarily occupation of the land, but occupation of the psyche of this society. I mean, one has to demonstrate that, do you have presence of, say, Christianity there? Do you have presence of, etc.? That's how there was a criteria to split these pieces of land. Well, let's pack that set of issues. Now, coming to what we're trying to do now, I've listened with the Pan-Africanism with attention. Of course, I've got Adoid, and then the let's unite now. But still, I always find it difficult to get a clear, consistent rhetoric of this unification. That is one. Two, the Pan-Africanism itself as an ideology, I believe it's an ideology. I fail to understand as to it is standing on what plate to sustain itself. You know, what I'm trying to say here is an ideology supposed to have a mutual relationship with the practicality of the program. The practicality of the program needs to be guided by the ideology. Of course, we can fuse ideology with the philosophical understanding. Like the case of South Africa, I relate to Ndlovu. I think the sins of South Africa were that there was no African philosophical thought process that was included in the negotiations of 1994. Now, coming to what we're trying to do now is this Pan-Africanism across, I mean, all the African continent and diaspora and so. In my view, when I look at it critically, it seems to struggle to get its own stand and stand on something. And then it becomes a rhetoric and it becomes an ideology. And as a result, then it tends to be static and can't move. Now, the question will be, as we talk of the unity, in the absence now of course, where I'm sitting, my analysis, that might be incorrect. As we talk of the unification, that I'm saying that the rhetoric is not clear, the programmatic practice is not supporting the ideology, and the ideology is not really guiding any form of some sort of a practice. What sort of tools that we intend to use? And I sometimes feel that we don't really get to that critically as to what tools are we going to utilize. Maybe then when we get in a conference somehow, but these tools are supposed to assist us in deriving the rhetoric, because now one talks of mass mobilization, that is correct, but what rhetoric are we using in that mass mobilization? What are we talking about? How is this society structured? And it has been an old debate, I think, in the Pan-Africanism, but now and again, the aspect that led us to colonialization is always left out in our attempt to try and dismantle the system so that the Pan-Africanists come to the fore. I mean, the Cultural Revolution, if one will recall that so many previous leaders and our ancestors today, the matter of a cultural revolution is the one that crippled us, because cultural revolution is the one that made us easily divided. Thus, therefore, it talks of the process of colonization. Now, how do we relate, or how do we fuse, how do we bring in the cultural revolution in our rhetoric so that our mass mobilization can be something practical? Now, out of that practicality, this practicality is guided by the Pan-Africanism ideology. Then in so doing now, we're asking ourselves, but what is required? Because as things stand in the African continent, is that the whole economic front has been taken away from us. And the society itself, the institutionalization of society, resembles the way we've been colonized. Are you still there, Chair?
Yes, listening, yeah.
So the society resembles the way we were colonized. Remember, the democratic system, the democratic project, is a success because it captures the society. And then the democratic project, it works with, say now, within the capture of society, it goes with the capture of the economy. Because of our weakness on the cultural front, we're just unable to survive in terms of building institutions that are orientated to what we want as African people. That's everything we touch and it fails. I mean, the case of South Africa already indicated. South African freedoms, like the liberation that we have today, it's not our thing. It's complete foreign thinking. The whole structuring of South African societies, it's a complete foreign approach. So those are things that I think, as comrades are trying to unpack the Pan-Africanist or the African unity. we need to look at it. I am saying, Chair, what are the tools we intend to use? Do we have a clear rhetoric? Can we stem the Pan-Africanism on a pragmatic program that it will feed this ideology, and thus this ideology will guide this pragmatic program? So those are the things. What I'm getting most of the time, comrades, is a situation where we basically talk about, let's have a conference. And okay, well, you can have a conference, and then what next? Now these bricks and malt are not really tied up together, so that it's clear. A comrade in Ghana is very clear when he articulates the rhetoric and the pragmatic program that is guided by the ideology, the Pan-Africanism, and how do we want the society to be like. That, therefore, then, in my suggestion, it brings in the cultural revolution. What is it that we're going to use to mobilize this message? What message are we saying, are we presenting to the societies, so that they can have an interest of our endeavor as to the Pan-Africanism? For example, there are quite a number of things that are missing. I mean, we are aware that the colonization, the danger, let alone the economic front of it, the economics of it, but the danger there is that we have lost our identity. Do we articulate that? Can that form part of our rhetoric? We have lost our culture. We have lost our sacred spirituality. Can all those things then be formulated by very best of the best brains among ourselves to capture a rhetoric that we can therefore use it as a key to go out through our societies and mobilize people? Let me pause there, Chair, so that I don't really take all your time. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Brother Mngani. I would say I've shared on the screen the three-legged stool of which goes to the heart of the African position on the nation, that the African nation must have a three-legged stool. And one of the legs, one is politics, one is economics, one is culture. And culture, as you've acknowledged, is missing. And there is a need to reinstate culture. African culture, as you know, is there. It hasn't gone away. It only has been dominated by the new colonial state. And even the African leaders who do not appear to embrace it, they go to the shrines when nobody's looking. They go to the stools when nobody's looking, and so on and so forth. So African culture is alive and well. And I think you raise a question, how can we re-engage Pan-Africanism within that? And consensusism is very clear. So what I also say is that, Brother Bongani, we certainly agree with you that you have something to contribute to what we are saying. So you are part of the conversation, and the part of the conversation that you have raised is that, and yes, consensusism is an ideology, and it's also a philosophy. So the philosophy is called philosophical consensusism, and the ideology is consensusism. So yes, that is correct. It promotes the principle of African unity, and in terms of the practice, it's saying that we must root Pan-Africanism in the industrialization of Africa. You see, Africa has to be industrialized, and so that we can be a manufacturing power as well. And that is the basis for us to be, so as an industrial power, if we are going to be a military power, we have to have the industries on the basis of which we have that military power. Without industrialization, we cannot be a military power. So what I would say, Brother Bongani, is that you are part of this conversation. Yes, we are not a conference here. Here we are having a conversation. And this conversation was initiated by CSG because of what one of our sisters said. She doesn't like me to mention her, so I won't. And we discovered that even as conscientists, we believe in African unification, but we're not talking about it. And they say, actually, hold on. How come we are not talking about something that we regard to be so important? And that is why we initiated these Saturday conversations. So, Brother Mongani, you are part of the conversation, and we will look up to you to help us carve out the practicality. And I say so because you and I have had conversations in the past, including Brother Kwame Gonza, if you recall. We've had conversations around this. So yes, so we will, as part of the conversation, look at what are the policies, what are the practices, what are the tools, and I'm sure you can assist us on that. Okay, so to summarize the conversation so far, we are saying that there has to be some sort of global level mobilization. There has to be mobilization at the level of the African states themselves. And Brother Ndlovu, the previous one, the global level. Brother Che Anye is saying that we should mobilize at the continental level, and that is happening in Zambia in December. Incidentally, Brother Ndlovu also is mentioned December, so we might have to talk about that. And then Brother Sipiwe, who is not here, also is saying that we must, within the nations themselves, rather continental level, at the national level, within the nations themselves, we should mobilize the masses around African unification. Why? Because they hold sovereign power. Brother Bongani is saying that what are the tools that we are using? We talk a lot, but not much comes out of the talking. We hold countless conferences, and not much is coming out of the conference. And that is also then part of the fact that there are loads of Pan-African organizations, and yet we're not talking to one another. So that is where we've reached so far with our conversation. So the floor is still open. And can I share some continental news briefly, and then Brother Pigeon, if you can share the rest of the session, that would be great. So the news I want to share are just one or two on the continental level. So the first one is that there was an international conference on France's neo-colonial policies in Africa, organized by the Initiative Group in Baku, and that took place on October 3rd, 2024. One of the speakers was Kemi Siba, who some of you will know. He's a well-known activist and a leading critique of French colonialism. So he and Dr. Arikana share the same position. So that conference took place. So things are happening at the continental level. The other news I also want to share is that Riley Odinga apparently wants to be chair of the AU. He wants to be, is that correct? Yeah, the chair, the AU chair, the new AU chairperson of the AU, and which our brother Pigeon has also applied for, but the Kenyan government preferred to promote Riley Odinga. Now, apparently, Riley Odinga has his bold proposal will be that he wants to create a center for African political parties. He wants a fostering of ideological cohesion among parties across the continent. That's interesting, but that's exactly what we also want. We want political parties on the African soil to coalesce around a defining ideology. So I would propose that, Brother Pigeon, we contact Riley Odinga on this very question, because we are interested in what he wants to do there. The third news I want to show on the continental level also is coming from Kenya. Kenya appears to be doing a lot, apart from the Sahelan states. It turns out that the CEO of Kenya Airways, let me get his name right. His name is, hold on. His name is CEO Alan Kilavuka. He is suggesting that we unify all African Airlines into one entity. Very interesting development. I think we should contact him as well, because this is an interesting idea. He is saying that we have too many, just like African countries are balkanized. He's saying that all these airlines, different airlines, like Rwanda Airline, Ghana Airways, Kenya Airways, these airways, that why don't we have one continental airline? That for me is part of the Pan-African project. So things are happening. Those are news on the unification level that I would like to share. Thank you. Brother Pigeon, can you proceed with the rest of the meeting? Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, we are having around 21 or 22 minutes to the end of our meeting. I'll at least go the list.
27 to be more precise.
Yeah, we have a list here of over 19 to 20 members who have been attending this. Of course, 3 or 4 to 5 have spoken. So I'd like to go through the list and give each member of those who will be willing to speak at least a minute to share something in regards to this conversation that has been going on. That will help us at least to have a say on this. We have a conversation where we want you to have a part to say something, but only if you are able. So I'll be going around the list here to give each person at least a minimum of a minute or a maximum of a minute to have your input to the conversation. So in my list, I'll start by Brother Carrington, then I'll go to Sister Myra, then Sister Abigail. In that order, at least a minute or a minute and a half, just share something in regards to this conversation.
Brothers and sisters, thank you very much, Brother Pigeon. Thank you very much, everyone. Yes, my interesting news that I found compelling was that there was a Biashara Africa conference, Africa Trade Conference, Africa Trade and Business Conference in Rwanda. 30 countries are now set to join the guided trade initiative of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Most of you are familiar with the Continental Free Trade Area to build a sort of one market in the continent. If this is implemented, it will be an extremely powerful tool because people who trade with each other learn to depend on each other, and this can form the basis of political unity, or at least part of the basis of political unity in practice. So it's a very powerful idea. The hope is that to get around 53%, 60% increase in trade within African nations. And also there has been a fund called the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement Adjustment Fund to help those countries who are inclined to practice protectionism to be able to get a fund to adjust to pay for the amount of money that they may lose through free trade, which I think is a very good idea, considering that free trade has negative and positive effects. But I think this is a very good institutional route that the African Union is taking. I'm very happy with Wamkene Mele. I think he's of South Africa, but he's now working in Ghana in the headquarters of the Continental Free Trade Area. And we can pay attention to this institution and possibly use it to push Pan-African agendas, use the tools that are working or semi-working to push Pan-African agenda. I would propose to the chair and the co-chair to try contacting Wamkene Mele so that he can talk to us and we can engage with him. I think it would be a wonderful thing and he would be up for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Carrington. Your request noted, and we'll try all the best to have that contact. I'll follow up with you in regards to this after the meeting. Let me get to Sister Myra. Sister Myra, at least a minute to share your contribution in regards to this conversation.
Sorry, Brother Pigeon, I joined late, but I do have, so I don't have, I was just kind of catching up. But if I can ask a question to Brother Carrington about the contribution that he's just made. That does sound like a very exciting development. I was wondering if he's aware, if in amongst all the discussions that they had, whether they also talked about anything to do with industrialization, because actually I think for Africa that's the key. We all know that we African states have pacts that they've made with the Europeans, and these pacts to stop African nations from industrializing. So I'm wondering whether this new initiative is going to try to at least make some efforts towards industrializing the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Myra. I'm not aware of the pacts for deindustrialization of Africa. However, I am aware that this continental free trade area is meant to accelerate industrialization as part of its objectives under the African Union. So there's, for example, trade between Ghana and Kenya was done last year under the initiative of Kenyan processed tea going to Ghana, and Ghanaian processed chocolate and cocoa coming to Kenya. So I think this is the primary objective actually of the agreement. Thank you.
Okay, I'll do again a follow up on that, because my close friend is part of the secretariat at a continental level. Sometimes back, I think 2 years ago, I was participating in a meeting and was facilitating as just a supportive staff who was running to go print the document sent to him as he was chairing the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. He's a senior trade officer in Kenya and is part of the main secretariat in the AFTCA. So I'll ask him probably the trade text and maybe check if he can get us to the lady in charge, or even if he can speak as the position of the secretariat. He's also the chairperson of the East African Community Economic Bloc, which are developing a standard for East African goods. So I'll try to get in touch with him.
Yeah, please invite him too, yes, so that we can hear him.
Okay, thank you. I'll do that. Let's get to the conversation. You can contribute to the reactions and points members are raising, or you can also as well contribute to the points that have been raised, presentation that has been raised by Brother Ndlovu, or the position that has also been presented by Brother Kevin in regards to the conference that is coming up. I'll be able to circulate his details in regards to this as well. Brother Ndlovu, also please share with me also the information. I know you've been setting up some organization of a kind for membership involvement, and we will try our best to see how we can interlink what Sifiwe is doing, what Kevin is doing, and Ndlovu is doing, so that you can tap together and see how we can accelerate the process. So let me get to Brother the King Wauli. Yeah, the King, I was coming to you in the list, so a minute or maybe maximum 1.5 to contribute to this conversation.
Okay, well, greetings, brothers and sisters. My question has to do with what is the plan for our African music and sports industry in terms of the African free trade?
Our plans for African music and industry. We don't have a representative here from the music industry, but I'm aware of a guy who is working on the film industry. I think if you can be interested, there was a conference in Kenya on Afro what? It was called Festac Festival. And I had the contact of the guy who was organizing that. I will just try to trace it back again. Because Festac is revived after the long time Festac that was to celebrate our culture and everything else. I think it was started in Ghana or Nigeria, but now he revived it and Kenya was hosting it this year. I'll be able to follow up with my friend from the music and film industry. So what you can do, just put into directly either to my WhatsApp the question you're asking, and I'll be able to check with this guy who was part of the film and organization level at the Festac. Maybe probably also we can see how we can reach the chair of the Festac festival to bring to us the cultural aspect that was also being raised by a member here. How are they using the Festac as a tool to bring back the cultural liberation or unification of the continent?
As well as sports as well too.
Oh, sports as well. Okay, thank you. But just put directly the question to my WhatsApp or in the text here so that I can do a follow-up with it. Okay, let me get to Sister Jerotich. Please come in a minute or two to share your contribution as well.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. My contribution, one is I'd like to respond to Brother Bogani's concern that he raised about the fact that we're not dealing with what separated us initially during the invasions in Africa, which was our culture and our tribes being used negatively to split us and to make us fight against one another. So negative ethnicity is actually one of the reasons why we are not united. And if I look at my country, I'm from Kenya, it's actually such a big deal that the entire government system is now with this government is purely tribal, which is a bad thing. So as we look at this, the goal of, as we create this Pan-African uprising, I would like us, someone said that we should forget I'm Kenyan and forget he's South African. We should look at each other as brothers. So my thinking, which I don't have a solution, it's just an idea I'm suggesting, is that we look for a theme that brings us all together. For example, if we use Swahili, which is among the most common spoken languages in Africa and promoted actually by the African Union. If we use Swahili and we look for a theme that brings us together, you know, the way Ubuntu is something that promotes brotherhood. If someone who is more conversant in the language, who can bring up a theme that we can use in all our Pan-African meetings, and we can even make an anthem out of it that literally eliminates the tribe and the country. It just makes us look like brothers. For example, in Rwanda, after the genocide, there was a rule a rule by the government that you cannot call that person a Tutsi and you cannot call that person a Hutu. That was like forbidden. So they were trying to remove that ethnical boundary and trying to bring them together. So my idea is creating a Swahili philosophy that can be our guide to foster our unity, eliminating the national barriers as well as the cultural barriers. Sorry, number 2, I'll be fast, is the food basket. There's nothing we can do if we are not feeding our people well. There's nothing that Pan-African team can do if we are not eating well. So what I'm thinking is clean food systems. And I repeat the word and emphasize the word clean. A case in point, where I come from, the globalists have attacked the agricultural sector. There is no seed sovereignty. There is a lot of bills, let me not mention, for those who are Kenyans may understand me, agricultural license bill, where the farmer now has to pay so much to produce basic food for himself. Now, there was a clip that was going around, I think 6 months ago in Zimbabwe, where 30 years ago in Zimbabwe, all you needed to produce food in Zimbabwe was seeds. And at that time, people were so communal, you know, seeds were being shared like water. You know, it's just something you don't even think about. Right now, to produce food in Zimbabwe, you have to spend so much money. I don't have the exact figure, but first you have to use an herbicide to remove the weeds. Then you have to plow. At that time, it was just labor and seeds. Now we have the herbicide, then we have labor, then we have now the seeds. Remember, these seeds cannot grow again. You have to go and buy again next season. So you are in a rat race. Number 2, these seeds are GMO. They are not good for you. Remember, as Africans, we align with nature as much as possible. And this is a big argument with agriculturalists, where they say that GMO supplies enough food, keeps the basket heavy. But for my thinking, if we do a clean food system, and clean, I mean regenerative agriculture. Regenerative agriculture basically means going back and farming the way our ancestors used to farm, which is a big debate because many people say it can't work. It can only work on small scale, but we can try. Case in point, if you look at the TASA technique in Mali, and this was demonstrated when IMF had been doing an agricultural project in Mali for years, saying they're now bringing in a modern technique fully funded with a lot of money in the desert in Mali. This thing did not work for 10 years. Right beside it, there was a farm using TASA technique of farming, and it worked and thrived. But IMF are insisting on we're bringing a new technique. So looking at the way sorry, I'm taking too long, I'm winding up. Our ancestors farmed, they farmed the soil. They didn't farm the plant. They took care of the soil and the soil took care of them. So going back that way, we're able to get clean food. If we're able to get clean food for the continent, then we can do possibly anything that we can think of. So my concern is clean food, okay, clean soil, clean food, and clean food, and then people are not sick. Like our health our health system is clean, our bodies are clean, and then we can be able to pursue our highest goals. Those are my 2 ideas.
Thank you, sister. In regards to your second comment, I don't know if you are also able to get in touch so that we can see if we can organize a session on Saturday when you look at our stomach as well. Because, yes, I know there's a global agenda in the continent in regards to taking over our food system. And once we will be dependent on them to feed ourselves, then our liberation or unification might also not be attained. So, if possible, I know you have my contact. If I believe so, you can put forward some concept in regards to this. Then I'll also look at the bills that you've proposed, and I'll get to General Anunnaki, who is also running an organization that is trying to promote our cultural food products and food eating system. He's a farmer indeed, but I'll get to him to ask him also his comment in regards to this conversation. And I believe we can co-work together to do a presentation in regards to this, based on also what General Anunnaki is doing in South Africa and what you are proposing, and regards also on the basis of the bills and proposals that are being put to the government of Kenya today. Is that okay, sister?
Thank you, yes.
Yeah, please
Thank
get in touch. I know you have my contact. Get in touch so that we can schedule this.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. General Anunnaki. To you, maybe a minute in regards to the conversation. We are trying to run, of course, but I'm doing my best to reach out to as many people as possible in regards to the conversation today. And first of all, confirm to me if you also would be willing to do something in regards to our food program that we'll be planning to have a presentation on. I know you are working on something on agriculture.
Yes,
Yes.
one of the boys.
Yes.
Big thanks, my friend, and to my family here in the group. Okay, yeah, my friend. Yeah, most definitely. I'm keen on doing such works. And then on the conversation, today I don't have much to say really, because you guys have pretty much said a lot of things that I agree on. And just to agree on that point also, we do have a problem as Pan-Africans of many organizations, and yet we don't recognize each other. I think it's just how the divide and conquer tactics, like the elder said there, Ndlovu, you see, the divide tactics. Yeah, it's part of it. And our ancestors had this problem with the white folks. And so we as a new generation are supposed to check this weakness of them using our kindness and our Ubuntu, because the white people are using our Ubuntu and our kindness to get to us. I can see even here in South Africa is the same thing happening. A lot of people are coming in South Africa into our homeland. They just come sell, sleep with the girls. They don't follow customs. They don't pay. No dowry, nothing. They just, it's a lot of things. So I agree, and there needs to be a centralized administration for Africa. And that's what we're striving for, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, General. So you agree to also to work together with Sister Jeroti to do something on agriculture?
Most definitely, my leader, most definitely.
Okay, thank you. Give thanks, and thanks for what your organization is doing in regards to also the agricultural part of Africa. So I'll be getting to Sister Tapua, then I'll get to Sister Shaza in a minute or a minute and a half. We still have around 11 minutes or 10 minutes to go. Sister Tapua? Yes, Sister Tapua, your time, please.
Yes, I am one person who's more to do with what we do on the ground with the person in the street, with the physical presence in the street. Because like one brother has said, we cannot organize these global actions and at national level and so on without the backing of the people. I was just imagining how possibly the Berlin Conference was that which gave the European countries impetus to do what they had to do. But they had soldiers on the ground who convinced us that it's worthwhile speaking in their tongue, and it's worthwhile us behaving the way they do. This is exactly what we need to do. We need to get back to the people, to help people realize what being African is, to consolidate by seeding African self-awareness, so that when we're talking about African unity, it's not an alien idea because we've been watering it. So we need to take action to get people to realize who they are. Because like we've all noted, we've lost part of our culture. We're losing our children to the Western culture. We've lost our religion. We've lost our politics to the organizational politics of the West. So what do we do on the ground? I was looking at a quotation by Chinua Achebe, and if I can get back to it, it reads, I have only a short while to live, and so have Uchedu and Uchanako and Emofu. But I fear for you young people because you do not understand how strong is the bond of kinship. You do not know what it is to speak with one voice. I think that's our challenge. For our group, I think it was in the conscientism section this week that we talked about trying to see what Brother Pigbin has been doing in terms of civic education and seeing whether we can have a strategy which we can all follow in the different countries or spaces that we are in on how to raise African awareness on a particular theme. I think that's what we need to do so that when the December conferences are held or any other conferences are held, people will understand what these conferences are about. Because as long as we don't take the people with us, we're going nowhere. And we're not having the unity that will help us to speak with one voice. And when we say speak with one voice, we're talking at all levels, speaking with one voice. And I think a lot of us who are academic and privileged have the propensity to organize big meetings whilst forgetting the people in the street. I think we need to really focus on that. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, thank you, sister. In regards to what you mentioned, of course, I'd say that I'm trying to review the booklet. Of course, I'm including still a page on Africa unification as well. I put forth a proposal to include a page on reparation, which is also a global agenda, and I'll be putting a page again on the Africa unification, so that when we teach the people about the problem of Kenya in terms of economics and governance, we must also teach them about the unity of Africa and the necessity of that unity. We must also teach them about the demand for our reparation and necessity of that as well. So yes, we need to do this and ensure that we go out and teach the masses. That's very critical and very important. And I really support that as well, sister. Let me get to Sister Shaza. I'm trying to run my timelines. Sister Shaza, a minute, please. Then I get to Brother Sam. I'll try my best to ensure that I still have around four people in line to finish if they have something to share. Sister Shaza? Okay. Let me get to Brother Sam. Sam, a minute to share something with us before the meeting come to an end. Your maybe observation in regards to the presentation and the positions being presented here in regards to our way forward as a unity, and anything you'd like to share with us. Please, Ella. Elder Sam? Sam, you are unmuted. Sam Motao, or Moshao, from South Africa. Okay. That's missing as well. I think he has gone back to mute himself. Yeah, Elder Sam, please. Okay. Work on that. I'll come back to you, Elder Sam. Let me get to my last year. Brother Victor, a minute, please, to share something in regards to this. I know we didn't give you a time to share your input as well in what you had last time, but a minute to react to the conversation today. The Victor?
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me, PJ?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Last time I did not conclude my submissions, but according to our discussion of the day, I want to thank each and every person for the contributions. There is a very, I've been doing a research. I am a Pan-Africanist, and I've been trying to do a case study and try to observe how things are going and everything, especially on our continent. Let me specify to Kenya. We have existing political parties and we have founding political parties. And most of these political parties, they control the minds, or rather the conversation, the political conversations in each and every country, especially in Kenya right now. We are talking about UDA, ODM, and we have in South Africa like the ANC, EFF. You know, they control a very large number of supporters, and these supporters, if liberated, they might end up being conscious and understand why the unity of Africa is important. And I wanted to put up across, as I don't want to take much time, most of the Pan-Africanists who tried to unify Africa. Let's talk about Kwame Nkrumah. He left a very big print about the unity of Africa. But how did his story end? It ended where he was overthrown from his position and he had to move to a different country. Look at Gaddafi, how did he end? Look at recently we had a Pan-Africanist in Tanzania. We are talking about John Magufuli. Look at the current Pan-Africanist, who is Ibrahim Traore. In fact, yesterday they were saying he has survived his 22nd assassination attempt. So you find that there are some powers that are controlling Africa. And that's why I was saying that we really need to know where the problem is and how to fix the problem. If we have higher powers that are still controlling Africa, it simply means that we are not free from colonialism. Colonialism just repackaged itself. There is a famous quote I saw as I conclude. It said that if we are not careful, there is a leader who spoke about this, I cannot recall the name. He said that if we are not careful, the colonizer will come back as an investor and he will come and take over all the opportunities. And actually it's colonialism, but it will be rebranded into investment. So we really need to be cautious about the unity of Africa, especially if we don't have the support of the present governments and heads of states, because most of them are just caretakers of the colonizers. Thank you, Pigeon. Hope I will get enough time to speak more next time.
Brother Victor, in regards to the position you're providing, are you able to do it as a presentation so that I can schedule another day for you to do what Brother Mfanela has also shared with us? Because this is a conversation where we share what we think as forward towards the unification. So have you done, can you be able to do something like a presentation out of your research, and then you get in touch with me so that I can give you a space on one of the Saturday to share this as well, as a time to do a presentation?
I'm really, really ready about it.
Okay, get in touch with me in regards to that as well, so that we send you this. Okay, we are exactly on time, and I'll seek your guidance, Chair. We have three sisters who haven't spoken: Sister Ida, Sister Marlene, a minute if that would be okay, and we also have, of course, Sister Chisomo here, and lastly is Brother Coco. Chair, can I be able to give them a minute each?
You have to ask permission from us all. I'm not. It's up to us here if we want a 5 minutes extension so that we can hear from the sisters and Brother Coco.
Okay. Members, I think if anybody has an objection in regards to that, you can raise your hand. If you don't have any objection, then I can give the four speakers who haven't spoken at least a minute to share their thinking. We are always conscious of time, and that's why we seek your indulgence if you have to extend that. Okay. I see Sister Tapui supporting that as well. So let me move by the fact that nobody objects us to have an extra 5 minutes for each of the members to have a minute each to share something before we end the meeting, because I want to ensure everybody speaks. So please, if you get opportunity, have a minute to share with us so that we don't extend beyond the time. So let me start with Brother Coco. Your hand was up. Let me start with you. A minute, then I get to Sister Ida, then Sister Chisomo, and finally we'll end with Sister Marlene. Brother Sam was not able to unmute himself. Same with Sister Shaza. Yes, Brother Coco?
Thank you, brother. I'm sorry, sisters, that he has decided to put me ahead of you. But in short, I'm doing a presentation on Pan-Africanism at my workplace on Monday. And in this case, I'm against Pan-Africanism. This has helped me to sort of do some research and understand more about the factors militating against Pan-Africanism. And here, let me just quote one thing which people hopefully will remember for a while. This is a quote from Dr. Marimba Ani, who says, "We as Africans were consciously stripped of our culture." That becomes a platitude, but nobody seems to realize the depth of what that means. Being stripped of our culture meant being conditioned to accept ourselves as inferior beings. Thank you.
Okay, Brother Coco, that's a very interesting position, which you also will be interested. So also let me know if you wish to share with us the presentation of here.
Sorry, Brother Coco, just so you know, we don't accept that position. Not all of us think we are inferior. And certainly the colonizers didn't think we were inferior when they colonized us. It wasn't because we were inferior. That's not why they colonized us. So I just thought I'll make that point. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be interested to get your position in regards to that, Brother Coco, if we can have a conversation around it, on whether I've also been believing, whether is it Blackism, Pan whatever, or Pan-Africa as a continent. Is a whole conversation we can have to understand when you talk of Pan-African, is it African as a continent or Africa as a people or pro-Black people or the rest? Because these are conversations that have been rising. But I think if all is okay, we can at least give you also an opportunity to share your thinking and your presentation so that we can also give our position in regards to that. But that's
Thank you, brother.
in touch with you.
Yes.
So
Sorry. Can I just make a quick statement also? Let's remember that the creator of apartheid in South Africa, what he said about the African, he said he's an elephant. What we should do is to make sure he doesn't know he's an elephant. If he does, he will walk all over us. So apartheid wasn't because they felt we were inferior.
Okay.
That's not the reason. So
okay.
I'm happy for us to have a session, Brother Coco, on the cultural issues. Brother Bongani from South Africa, he's raised the issue of the need for us to root Pan-Africanism in the cultural revolution.
Okay.
Yes, I think that's something we should welcome. And yes, Brother
Thank
PG,
you.
let's
Sister Ida?
have a session on that at some point. Yeah.
Sister Ida? A minute. I don't want to extend further. A minute, Sister Ida, if you're able to share something. Okay. Sister Marlin.
Sorry, did you call me?
Yeah, I've been calling you.
Oh, so sorry. I'm sorry. There's I'm competing. No, I'm not competing with anybody. All I can say to you all is that I love that idea about the planes, uniting the planes, because we need to have more travel between all the African countries. So I want to thank you all for all your contributions that you've put in today since I've come. It's been very interesting, and I wish you all a good night. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Sister Ida, and thank you very much for this as well. Sister Marine, a minute, please. You've been lost for a while. Are you able to share something in regards to the presentation? I know you came late. Then let me know. A minute.
Oh yes, sorry, yeah. All I would like to say, I came in a bit late, but I heard one of the members was mentioning about unity and speaking in one voice, and we need to get the message out there to all on the continent. But it's going to be extremely difficult. I know we're trying, because they had the African stream going, and it was taken down because it was reaching too many people in Africa. So how are we going to deal with a situation like that and make sure that the message can get out to the lay people? Because if people do understand what's going on, they won't be able to stoke up all these wars that is happening on the continent, where one group is fighting against each other while they're taking out. And that needs to be known through the people on the ground, what really is going on, to keep them in their poverty, for them to be traveling on these boats, losing their life, expecting to come to a better life, because all their wealth taken out of their country. So I don't know how that's going to be dealt
Okay.
with.
The Sister Malin, I think I'll also put that request forward to anybody who thinks that they are working on any medium of us to connect in terms of a channel or any communication link. So thank you very much. I will look forward to anybody who has a proposal in regards to that, because the message has to reach out to the people as well. Sister Chisomo, I'll end with you. A minute, please.
Oh, hello, good evening. Brilliant presentation by Mr. Ndlovu, and I would argue the same. What I would like to, well, I spoke last time about political parties and also focusing on organizing at domestic level, which is also national level. We're talking about the population of Africa being young, most of them teenagers, and all they understand are political parties, the T-shirts that were mentioned earlier. How do we get the message to them about Pan-Africanism if at national level, at domestic level, we're not united at all? And so focusing on uniting at national level, then we can be able to speak at continental level, at regional level, because it's not even working at regional level at all. So our differences, because we were tribalistic and now we are now in political parties, it's causing more and more division. I've observed that the 50+1 approach might just be narrowing things down on political parties, because, for example, in Malawi, you have 68, and now because of the 50+1, we ended up with 2 heads of state competing, and the rest of them under the other 2. So in terms of somebody mentioned agriculture, I'm on the ground at the moment, and what I observed in Malawi is that they seem to understand the difference between GMO and the traditional way of doing things. So when you're buying things, if you're buying something or you're ordering food, they will ask you, do you want, what are they calling it? Do you want local or, what are they calling it? Local or, meaning GMO. So if you're ordering chicken, for example, fried chicken, they'll say, oh, do you want GMO or do you want hybrid? If you're buying the groundnuts, they'll say, oh, do you want local or do you want hybrid? So I thought, oh, this is brilliant. They actually understand the difference, and that you have to make your choice as to which one you want to eat.
Okay.
So that's my argument. Domestic level, if we haven't prepared these young people who are being left out because of all these age limits, they won't get involved at international level. They won't get involved at continental level. They're not getting involved at regional level. It's just domestic. And if it's not happening at domestic level, we're doomed.
Thank you, Sister Chisomo. With that, indeed, if it doesn't happen at domestic level, we are doomed. So it's a responsibility, and I think it's also still our conscious move that we must bring the younger generation at the center of this conversation by actively engaging them. And I appreciate my fellow young people who have been coming on board to have the conversation with our senior on the same table, so that we can discuss the issue and the future of Africa at the same level as brothers and sisters who discuss the future and the present of Africa. So I do appreciate all of you for this time, and we have to keep the conversation going. Those who have presented or suggested some of the presentation they have been doing or what they are researching on, please get in touch with me via WhatsApp so that we can organize for some other conversation moving forward. Brother Kwame, back to you as we end this.
Yeah, thank you. Just so everybody's aware, you can come into our meeting anytime you like or are able to, for all kinds of practical reasons. But we are not very keen to be extending time. We don't like this question of African time, where we say we finish at 9 and then we are finishing at 11:09 or 10:09 or 9:30. We don't really like that at CSG. We like to keep to time. So when we say 7 to 9, we mean 7 to 9. I would suggest we don't extend the time in the future. We don't ask members to extend the time anymore, because then it become a practice. And then you see, when people will come late when they think the thing will be extended. And we understand that not all of us can come at the same time. However, whatever time you come, we must understand that we will finish at 9. Some people are at midnight right now where they live. It's past midnight. People have a life. So we will not be extending times. So as Brother Pigeon has already said, we thank everyone. Brother Pigeon, did you make the announcements for next week before we go?
No, basically we still have to plan on the next presentation that are coming next week, but we are still in the same line. We'll always be having this conversation on the unification, and anything that come in, we'll talk with those who have already suggested some of the presentation so that we do a follow-up and a continuation of this conversation. But of course, we are having our same Thursdays CSG class, especially on the reading the Consciousism study group, where we do the study of the book of Kwame Nkrumah. And I'd advise many people to come in, because that will then give us even a philosophical and ideological tapping towards the conversation we have on Saturday. So that's available on Thursdays, and we will invite members to join us on that Thursday as well. And of course, we also have a Swahili class where we are doing our best. Somebody has raised the language thing. We are doing our best. We always have Tuesday Swahili class, and we have translated this Consciousism book into Swahili, and we look forward to translate into more languages. So that's what I would like to announce. But we'll get you the right speaker. But not basically come to have a speakers per se. We'll have a conversation and get somebody who might want to share or start up a conversation like what you've been doing today. So that's what I would like to share with you in terms of the information. Thank you.
Thank you. The time is now 13 past. Finally, can I remind us that nothing stops us for the young people to put together an African government. You know, I think sometimes we forget that civil society can put together what some might call a shadow government, you know, for the continent. It's something that can be done. You know, so if the old people have put age limits, let's bypass that and set up a Pan-African government that is rooted in a shadow government. That can be easily done. And then we elect our own presidents and continental president, ministers, and then we show how it can be done. If the old people can't do it, let's show them how it can be done. Anyway, so that brings us to the end of today's